Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm having a weird pain right now that happened as soon as you hit record. I'm like, ow.
Like a baby pain?
Yeah. I don't know how else to explain it, but it just kind of feels like, everything's kind of moving around because I just ate. So maybe it's like
Mm-hmm.
digesting, but there's not really a lot of space for it to digest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but I'm good. I have a lot going on, and I'm kind of like trying not to drop the ball on anything. So,
I'm the same way. Like
yeah.
there's so much going on with work and home and like for context for people listening, Alyssa and I try to record a bunch of podcasts obviously to take us through our maternity leaves. And so we're recording this in December. We're like right before the holidays. And
Yeah.
so it's like very crazy for us right now.
Yeah, we're dedicated podcasters that
Yeah.
we're recording ahead of time. But yeah, it's a lot. Like literally right before the holidays. So
hmm Yeah, last week like I worked all day Sunday, or not all day Sunday. I worked on Sunday a bunch. I worked on Saturday a little bit. I was working all week. And I was like, I mean, obviously I was working all week, but I was working like overtime just trying to get everything done because I'm trying to have 2 weeks off where I don't have to think about
yeah,
work.
yeah. No, that's my plan too. Like today is dedicated to getting as much work as I can done
hmm
so that I can enjoy my time off and hold on because I'm getting work status location. Okay. Yeah, so just trying to get everything I can done before the holidays because yeah, we want to enjoy that time off.
hmm
But I did go through my breast pump supplies
Oh, yeah.
and like pulled out the main pumps I'm using, got rid of the stuff I don't need because I just saved everything. Um, and when I tell you, I think I had a little bit of postpartum anxiety and bought way too much stuff.
Me too.
It's
Me too.
scary. And I was like, I know Megan probably bought this much too because she was telling me of all the different pumps she was trying. But I was like, oh my word, Austin. He's like, I just kept saying yes. I'm like,
I just, yeah, I bought so much too. I was going through mine. Well, I pulled mine out a while ago, but I had it all in a bin. I haven't like gotten rid of any of the stuff I'm not going to use, but it's still like out in the garage. But yeah, and I had a hard time pulling out like what like I know I'm probably only going to use the Spectra and the Zomi basically, but then like sporadically I would use the like wearable ones because it
mm-hmm.
was helpful sometimes. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll pull those out. And so I feel like I still pulled like a lot out, even though primarily I use like one or two pumps.
Yeah. I pulled out the Medela hand pump so I can use that like at the hospital, whatever.
hmm
And then I pulled out the Mom Cozy M5
Yeah,
as like a wearable. And then I pulled out my new Spectre one I got, the S1, the blue one,
the
whatever
blue
it is.
one. Yeah.
And so those are my three main ones. I still have like three or four pumps in the box.
hmm
And then I got rid of um, one of them to give to my sister and stuff. And I was just like, oh, I consolidated from three boxes to one box
Yeah.
and halfway full box. So it's not even full. It was scary. I was like,
It,
oh my word. And I'm like literally pulling out breast milk bags. And I'm like, oh my God, we have like over 500
do you
breast milk
really?
bags.
I have like one container left, I think, but I didn't save a lot, so I didn't buy a ton.
Yeah, no, maybe used up the rest of my FSA money or something and like
hmm
just bought extra. But yeah, I'm like, okay, well, these ones are open. So I guess I'll just use these
Yeah.
first. Oh, yeah. So that was interesting. And then we've been working hard on like rearranging downstairs
Oh
now
yeah.
that we can like kind of set up a playroom with all the presents. I have all the presents sitting next to me too in this room. Um, so that's kind of what we started last night. And like, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I can do like, I got the motivation and I can like move things around and vacuum and
Mhm.
clean up. And then I'm like, I can't move anymore.
I know. Yeah, by the end of the night, it's, like, stiff.
Yeah. So I had to take a break and then we did more. But basically, what I'm going to do down there is I have like that big couch that used to be in our living room. It's like
Yeah.
a, what are those called? Sectional.
Yeah, sectional.
And then I have kind of like a sport area, a car area, a book area, and then like he got a tent too from his
Mhm.
aunt. So we have the tent area. And then in the like, spare room, since we don't really have anyone staying with us right now, I'm going to put all the toys and like rotate them out as I need to
Nice.
because it's right
Yeah,
there. So
that's perfect.
yeah, so went through that. And then we've been on a roller coaster this past week um, with my cousin. So, for those of you that don't know, he was in the hospital waiting on a heart and liver transplant.
Mhm.
And last week, Tuesday, no, last week, Wednesday, we got a call that there was a heart and liver available for him, like first thing
Nice.
in the morning. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm driving to work, listening to Kayla, my sister, tell me everything that she has to tell me. And that was like my whole drive. Actually, I was driving to physical therapy, but so I hang up and I talk to my mom for like 2 minutes before I go into physical therapy. And she tells me, and I'm like crying. And she's like, "You
Mhm.
can't cry right now. I need to be strong. You need to be strong." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm pregnant. So I'm going to cry.
Yeah,
Whatever."
right.
So then I go into physical therapy. I get out. And I pull out and I get to work and I'm just like mentally like, "Oh my God, what does this mean? What do we do? What blah, blah, blah,
Right,
blah."
right.
Because we found out like Wednesday morning and nothing happened until Thursday night.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was just like a long process of updates.
But it sounds like he's everything went good, and so far recovery's been okay.
Dan
That's
said
what's
that they just went to go see him and he was up and walking.
wow.
I know.
So
I'm like, oh my God.
it's crazy because I feel like we talked one time, and essentially the hospitals like in our area were like, "Oh no, he's kind of a lost cause." But he goes somewhere else, and they're able to like do this, and now he'll have, you know,
hmm
so much more time. It's just weird,
Well,
the
it's
health
those
system's so
risks,
weird.
that risk on the hospital, right? Because it's a risky surgery. So like if anything did happen, then they would get a ding. Where the
Hmm.
hospital he's at now was willing to accept a ding to save
Yeah,
his life.
yeah. That
So
should always be the thing. It should always accept a ding to like try to save somebody.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, well,
So
that's
yeah.
good. That is like so terrifying and scary, but I'm so happy like things are working out for him because I know he's been waiting a long time too.
Yeah, and I was just mentally like I don't, until like we found out that he woke up, I was just like not there.
I was
Or
nervous for a second because everybody in your family was changing like
the
picture like
pictures of
profile pictures of him like you did it, your sister did it. I'm like, oh no, did something bad like, and then I saw somebody's comment on one of your pictures that said, "Oh, I heard the news like that he's gonna get the it was like something like that." And I was like, "Oh, he must be getting the transplant." And I'm like, "Oh my
Mhm.
god, is this good or bad that they're putting this picture?"
Yeah, I was like last week I was like I'm going to text you and tell you, but then it like just kept evolving and became a bigger thing
Yeah.
and work was crazy and I was just like I'll just tell her next week when I
Yeah.
see her. Oh,
Oh, well, good. I'm so happy for him and your fam.
yeah. Yeah, so it's been good. What's been going on with you?
So last week we had the doula come to our house. So we get to, I think she's going to come to our house both times, but we get two visits with her. And it was like super informative. Now, she went over a lot that I
Or-
kind of already researched myself and know, but she also went over a decent amount that I like had no idea about.
Oh.
And like one of the things I thought was really interesting that I don't know if you've ever heard of, but she was saying she like gave it an acronym, so I'm not going to remember what that was, but she was basically saying the ideal position obviously for your baby is like head down, right? But you also kind of want them like
Face down, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And you want their bodies to be kind of on the left side of your body because that's
Oh.
like the easiest way. Now she explained it in a way that I'm not going to again because it's been a few days and I don't have that kind of memory. But all I remember her saying is that it makes it easier and you tear less and all these things if baby's in like left positioning
Hmm.
basically on your body, which I'm like, oh man, baby really loves right side of my body. But then she was like, these are all the movements you can do to help move baby to that side and that kind of thing. So it's just really like interesting. And she brought a lot of like evidence based stuff over and gave me a lot of handouts. And it was about an hour and a half. And we have another meeting to schedule before delivery.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was really nice. So I like that, and I like my decision to get one. So I'm excited. I feel good about it.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
That was needed.
Yeah.
I reached out to another one, but I haven't heard back. And Austin seems to be like pushing more for us to set a birth plan
Hmm.
than to focus on a doula. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I'm still going to talk to one more and then we'll make up a decision. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, what else is going on? We are I still want to say earlier stages of potty training, but we're at a point where Eleanor probably goes on the potty once or twice a day.
okay,
Uh,
that's good.
but we haven't forced it and we haven't like I know some people like remove the diaper and have them run around, in underwear or whatever, naked to, you know, encourage that. We haven't gotten there, I think probably after the holidays. I just don't want to do it right now because we're going to be out of the house a bunch.
Hmm.
But I bought a potty training chart, which she's so excited about. So we like hung it together and it's essentially kind of like a roadmap. And you put stickers on once you go. And then once you fill up the whole thing, you get a prize. And
Hmm.
so we told her when she fills it up, she can get a treat. She really loves cake pops. It's like her. She loves cake pops. So we told her she could get a cake pop when she fills it up. So she gets so excited to go and put her sticker on. And then she said, treat, I'm going to get a treat, cake pop. Like, so she's like really excited about it. So that is I feel like working out well. I like kind of the way we're approaching it. I know some people are like, okay, we're going to focus on this and only this, but we're kind of just timing wise, it doesn't make sense for us to just go full throttle yet because of the holidays and us being out of the house a lot. So, yeah, it's been going really good. I'm excited. I think maybe by Arlo's birthday, we'll be out of diapers.
That would be good.
Hmm.
We,
And
um, we aren't anywhere near, we're like not even like telling us when we go to the bathroom anymore. So we're kind
mm,
of like regressing in that area.
yeah.
But I'm trying to focus on the pacifier. So,
Oh, that's a big one too. She's been like wanting a passy all day. We decided after the holidays, that's another one we're going to like just start transitioning for bedtime only.
well, we tried it last night.
Yeah.
We cut a hole. Okay, so I was
Mm.
looking for a needle, and I think I'm gonna have to redo it because this is like we cut a hole in it. Austin cut like a huge hole, and I'm like, this is too noticeable for the first time. Gave it to him during his nap. He whined a little bit. He pulled it out. Went to sleep. Perfectly fine. But for you and I that have really good sleepers,
Mhm.
bedtime, we fought bedtime for an hour and a half.
Oh no.
But it was bad because we would go in there and he kept saying Babbo. And so I thought he was saying Baddo because we call the cat Baddo.
Yeah.
He was saying like it's a bad bow because we call it a bow.
Oh. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, here's a new one. And I gave him like two new ones, and he refused to put them in his mouth. And he just kept whining until Austin like got it shoved in his mouth an
So
hour and
he
a
knew
half
that it
later.
wasn't like
And then he
bad.
went right to bed. And I was like, oh dear God.
That one, I mean, but the thing is, we haven't even worked it to where she's not using a passy during the day. So now
Oh,
we
yeah,
want to
that's
do just bedtime first and then transition that off. But I'm scared to do, I'm scared for both.
it's oh, and it's so heart-wrenching too. But he's really good at now that we've made it a habit of nap and bedtime, he, like, takes it out and leaves it there in his crib.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, then nighttime.
Oh,
I was
gosh.
like, "You need to go to bed, we have stuff to do."
I know.
And
It's so
wrap your
hard.
presents.
I
Ah,
Oh, man. Yeah, but that's basically our update right now. I have something else on here, but I'm not going to put it in the podcast because I feel like we're over at this point. But she, uh, she
yeah, I'm
loves.
reading that, like, what is this?
Yeah, you're like, what is this? So she loves lately to just run around naked, and she calls herself Nakababa.
Oh.
So she has a nickname for herself for like everything. Like today, she's wearing her Mickey Mouse outfit from Halloween, and she calls herself Mickey Annie. And the other day, she wanted to wear her unicorn outfit, and she was Unicorn Annie. And it's like, but you have to call her that. Like, so if you say Eleanor, she's like Mickey Annie. This is
Oh
really
my
funny.
gosh, that's funny.
Little stinker. She's got such a personality.
They both are stinkers. Oh my
I
gosh,
know.
I can't. Ugh.
Okay, so those are updates. Welcome everybody to the Mom Era podcast. My name is Megan.
And I'm Alyssa.
And today we are discussing a topic that every expecting mom needs to think about, and that's your birth plan. Now, we know childbirth can be and is unpredictable, but having a birth plan is a great way to empower yourself, set some expectations, and a way to communicate your wishes to your healthcare team.
If you're like us and currently navigating the journey of pregnancy, you might have wondered, what should you include in your birth plan? How do you even start one? Whether it's your first baby, your second baby, birth plans can help you feel more prepared and confident as you approach labor. So, in this episode, we're going to share why birth plans matter, what you should consider including, and how to communicate your plan to your birth team. We'll also chat about how to stay flexible because let's be real, things don't always go according to plan.
Mhm. We both know that. Except I didn't really have a plan, so I guess there
Uh,
wasn't really a plan to go.
we had a plan to let the doctors be our plan, and that didn't work
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
So,
and you
that's why
can't
we're sharing this episode.
do that. Yeah, advocating for yourself is like such a huge part of your labor experience, and that's something I wish I would have known previously, but we live and we learn, and that's why we're here. So, let's talk about what a birth plan is first. So, this is more or less like a written document outlining your preferences for labor, delivery, and immediate postpartum care. So, think of it kind of as like a roadmap for your healthcare team to understand what your wishes are. Now, obviously, they may not all come true because, again, it's unpredictable, but at least you and your team have an outline roadmap expectation of what could happen. Um, a birth plan is important, and this is what I'm learning this time around because it helps your partner advocate for yourself and voice your needs during delivery. Emotions are like super high during labor, and if this is something you pre-prepare and let your team know about, let your partner know about, you don't really have to like necessarily do that mental labor while you're in that chaotic period trying to push out a baby. It's going to be hard for you during that time to think of anything else, so preparing ahead of time is really important. And then having a birth plan also reduces anxiety and allows you to focus on the experience, knowing you've kind of prepared. I know when I was in labor with Eleanor, they kept bringing things up to me like, do we want to do the Folly balloon or do we want to break your water? And I didn't have like a set out preference on what I would like in those situations. And so and I also hadn't done the research behind them, but because I didn't have a plan, and when I said yes and things like went wrong, like I just didn't know, right? And I didn't have that plan and I felt out of control the whole time. And so that
Mhm.
birth plan, like if I would have known, no, I don't want you to break my water until I get to maybe X centimeters or, whatever it may be, like I would have a better understanding and I could tell them yes or no and be a little bit more informed. So, uh yeah, that's my guidance. And again, a birth plan's not set in stone. It's really flexible. Um and it's supposed to be flexible. Obviously not everything in your birth plan is going to be hit. I think after you give birth to your baby, those ones are tend to be less like up in the air because you're deciding those things, which we'll talk about. But yeah, that's kind of what a birth plan is and why it's important. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I know we talked about this a little bit, Alyssa, and you had mentioned you kind of crafted a birth plan last time, but it wasn't really like front of mind. And how do you think that's like changing this time?
Um, well, I definitely like I took like a template I found online and like answered like the yes or no questions or specific things that like I wanted or didn't want, and half of them I didn't even know what it was. Like, because it
Mm-hmm.
would be like a specific type of, I don't know, it would outline something specific, and I didn't even know what it was. So we did a lot of like research, and then we checked the boxes, and like Austin and I agreed, but like I didn't understand like where each of these things would come into play, like
Mm-hmm.
no episiotomy or like, you know, no epidural or when I would get the epidural or things like that. It wasn't clear to me like how that would play out in the picture of the overall birth. So, um I think we just kind of like I remember it was like around the holidays we did it, and then I just kind of like set it aside. I don't know what in me just like decided not to look back at it because I just like had it in my mind. Like I felt like it would be weird to print out a piece of paper and like
Mm-hmm.
hand it to someone.
Yeah.
And when I had talked to my doctor, they were like, "Oh yeah, you can just like let us know at the hospital." I'm like, okay, so I'll just tell them when I get
Yeah.
there. And then just with the unexpected induction on whatever day it happened, it wasn't like I was more worried about like making sure we had our bags and everything
Yeah.
before grabbing my birth plan. So honestly, just kind of like went to the side.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any, I don't have an excuse as to why or a reason why. I just didn't
Did
look
you
back
feel like out of control during your labor experience too?
at it. Kind of. And I feel like not in the beginning. So I actually had a nurse that I had known previously, like in the beginning, like the first like 12 hours of me being there. So I felt like she was very much involved in listening, or no, it was the second shift. It was like the morning, the day
Okay.
shift of
Yeah.
Saturday. So I went in Friday night. I had that nurse. There wasn't really much going on. That day shift of Saturday, where I thought I was going to have this baby, I had a nurse that I knew, whatever, blah, blah. And then when I got to that Saturday night into Sunday morning is when I felt out of control
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know. No one told me what was going on. Like the doctor would come in and be like, "Okay, push," and then like leave and tell me to keep pushing, and
Mm-hmm.
like wasn't in there. And like the nurses were just like typing on their computer.
Yeah.
So there just wasn't a lot of like communication at this point. Like I all I knew is my water broke and I was at X amount of centimeters. Like that's all I knew. I wanted that epidural and that was it. Like I didn't know like how to push, what to do, like all these
Yeah.
things. So I kind of felt out of control during that portion of
Yeah.
my experience.
And it's hard as a first time, even if you like are preparing a birth plan, you don't know what you don't know. And I know we say that a lot. And I think it's so helpful to listen to other people's birth stories and hear how it went for them and the decisions they made and how it affected their labor. And there's so many podcasts, you can find some on YouTube. Like there's a lot out there that will provide that to you because it'll give you a little bit more context of like everything that can happen. And if you do make certain decisions, like what that could look like for different people. And so you're kind of a little bit more prepared on like what the process can look like because again you don't like I feel so much different going through it this time because I'm more aware, right? Like I was
Hmm.
in it the first time, I kind of understand now. I didn't get to this latter half where I was like pushing, so that's still going to be relatively new, but I've been listening to a lot of birth stories and so it feels I feel way more confident even though I've never done that piece.
Well, and I think too, one of the key things in order to write a birth plan and to like fully understand what you want is to understand the process of birth.
Hmm.
And I think that's key because once you understand what happens to your body during birth, what happens to the baby during birth, all the stages of birth, um, labor, active labor, transition, all those things, I think it's easier to be like, oh, well, I want to feel this way, or I want
Hmm.
this at this time, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like the just inform yourself on like different pain management and like induction and what all of that essentially could lead to, both positive and negative. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, this time, like the birth plan is something I've really tried to focus on. I did start crafting one this time. Like I said, last time I had nothing. It was like, don't have a C section.
Yeah, literally.
But I didn't do the work to plan for that and relied on the healthcare professionals who are obviously working in a medical model for-profit system, which I don't think our doctors and the medical professionals are bad. I just think they're influenced by like working in that type of system. They're so used to essentially getting people like in and out safely, and a lot of them think that the safest option is to just cut that baby out, right? Or induce. Or I mean, induction percentages are so high. I think it's like 30% in the US. Oh no, is that C-section rates? We're like 30%. But I think induction just over time is just increasing because it's convenient, right? And they
Well, it's a way
know
for them to control what's going
control.
on and,
Mhm.
monitor the environment the entire time.
Right, right. Which isn't something you necessarily always want. Obviously, it's your preference, um, but kind of messing with your natural body can lead to some outcomes you might not expect. So, yeah, my experience this time I hope is going to be really different. Obviously, it's I need to be flexible, but I do have a better understanding of what I'm going to want this time. And I'm going to bring in my birth plan. I'm going to print it. I'm going to put it out. I'm going to give it to everybody that comes in.
Mhm.
And we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited for us to like talk about our new birth stories. And I'm
Yeah,
just
like what
so,
happened this time
yeah,
versus last time. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of went through and pulled together some things like what to include in your birth plan. So, one would be labor preferences. So, environment, whether you have specific lighting, music, aromatherapy that you want, mobility and positions for labor, using of birth aids, so birthing ball, tub, peanut ball, shower, whether you want to limit cervical checks, if you want to wear your own clothing or you want to wear the hospital clothing, access to a bathtub and shower, and for them to ask before they touch you or what it means, and then also limiting students during labor. So I think a lot of these have points that you and I look at differently this time around.
Hmm.
Where, and I feel like as a first time mom, you walk in and you're like, oh, they tell you, okay, here's your room, put on this gown, like undress. So, like, you just think you have to wear the hospital gown. But really, you can wear whatever you want. You don't need to be in the hospital gown. The
Yeah.
hospital gown is nice to get dirty and gross because then you're not getting your clothes dirty and gross. But another thing is like limiting cervical checks. I was kind of researching this one, and I remember like, okay, like I would want to know when they checked me, like where I was dilated to, but that wasn't really dictating anything. It was just kind of
Hmm.
dictating whether they would increase my pitocin or do something different for my cervix. And I remember that after the Foley balloon came out, like that one check, like if I had a choice, which I did, I didn't know,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have gotten checked at that point
Yeah.
because it was just so painful. And I was just like, there's no reason because I didn't really progress at all.
Yeah.
Um, so things like that are things that you can consider and you're in charge of instead of just the doctor coming in say, okay, we're going to do a cervical check
Hmm.
right now or things like that. So
Yeah, and it's interesting too because your preference can be, oh, maybe limit cervical checks after they break your water, right? Because then you're more susceptible at that point to getting an infection. And so
hmm
if you're fine with cervical checks before that, but then want to wait, like that's also an option. Like you can craft this however you see fit. But I agree with you. I'm gonna, I think, limit them this time around. I think induction is a little different because obviously you're using medical intervention to move your body forward and there's less like cues from your body on where you are during labor,
hmm
and so cervical checks may be a little bit more necessary in those situations. But if you're truly trying to go into like natural labor and progress naturally, like you're going to have all those cues from your body and where you're at, and you probably only need to be checked very limitedly. But yeah, the labor preferences is one, again, same as you. I didn't know that I could wear my own clothes or that I could wear a bra, or that it would be advantageous for me to like kind of set the mood and comfortability in my hospital room by bringing in music or by bringing in twinkle lights or something like that, to just to make the environment somewhere where my body can relax and like feel comfortable and good.
hmm
Um, and so I think like labor preferences are super, super important to think about. Um, Also, ask your hospital what birthing aids they do have. So, a birthing ball, like, do they have a tub? Do they have a peanut ball? Because if they don't, you might want to consider bringing those in for yourself, because that mobility and using those type of aids can really move you along, like naturally, if you're kind of stuck.
Where I remember they gave me a ball, the
Hmm.
birthing ball, and I had a peanut ball. But they gave me that and they were like, "Oh, like why don't you move around, like,
Hmm.
try to get the baby to like, you know, whatever." And I'm like on the ball and I'm like, "I don't know what to do." Like
Hmm.
and I was like cold in this nightgown, like, and we were tired and I'm like, "Okay, well, if only I knew I could change the temperature, put on
Yeah,
music, do whatever I want." Like
right.
so, yeah.
Put on a robe, like, yeah. Yeah, you have those preferences in the hospital. Like, just know that's something we didn't.
Mhm.
Another thing you want to consider including in your plan are things around pain management and monitoring. So, do you want just natural methods of pain management, like using breathing techniques, massages, counter pressure? Do you want medical interventions like the epidural, nitrix, nitrous oxide, breaking of the water, Foley balloon, those kind of things? What are your induction preferences? Like, and lay it out as detailed as possible, because maybe you say, I don't want any induction unless my water has been broken for X amount of time, then maybe I'll start pitocin. Like, so you can kind of think of, like, if this scenario happens, maybe I would do this. Heart rate monitoring is another one that I actually just learned about this time when talking to my doula and some midwives, is that there's different heart rate monitoring. So I remember being hooked up corded the whole time, which obviously limits. That's why I kind of thought I had to be in bed, because you move and those things like fall off. But there's
Mhm.
different ways of monitoring. There's Bluetooth. So no, obviously the Bluetooth isn't going to catch everything as quickly, but like it's still a good option if you do want that movement opportunity. And then there's also intermittent, I'm not going to say this right, oscillation. But essentially what that is they'll kind of come in every so often and monitor you so you're not constantly hooked up. Now every case is different. So if you're high risk, you probably are going to be hooked up the whole time and they'll want that. It's probably good for you and baby. VBAC is probably the same. I'm probably going to have to be hooked up the whole time, but I'm going to push for Bluetooth. So there's lots of different like monitoring and pain management options for you and just kind of think through what that looks like.
Yeah, I had the Bluetooth one. Well, I had the cord one, but the Bluetooth, like they were trying to get to work, but it like wasn't working, so I
Mm,
couldn't use it. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, like when it came to medical interventions, like I just remember it wasn't like they gave me a list of everything that you
Hmm.
could choose from. It was just like, okay, you're feeling pain. Okay, we can give you this.
Yeah.
So it's just different once you understand what can
Yeah.
be helpful.
I remember them asking me that immediately when I went in. Like, was I open to, and the three were the nitrous oxide, like opioids, and I think the epidural were the three. And I remember I was like, I know I don't want the opioids or the opiates or whatever they're called. But the other two I said I was open to. But
Hmm.
I, still had no idea.
Yeah. Um, Going into another thing to include in your birth plan would be delivery preferences. So support people in the room, assisted catching, or a mirror. They did ask me if I wanted a mirror, and
Oh, they
that
did?
was yeah.
Did you say
I was
no?
like, no, I don't want to look at it. Delayed cord clamping, who cuts the cord, immediate skin to skin, third stage pitocin, and keeping the placenta. Um, so when I had talked to the doctors, they said that they did do delayed cord clamping,
Hmm.
like in general at the hospital, but I think it was only like by 30 seconds or a
That's right.
minute.
Yeah, ours is too.
Um, so to me, like, okay, that was considered delayed cord clamping because I didn't really do that much research on it. But this time I feel like I would do it longer. But I
Hmm.
also feel like within the time that the baby came out and then the time that they got the cord, it was like almost immediate. Like it didn't feel like it was delayed at all.
Yeah,
But it could have
mine
just been me
either.
like exhausted at that point.
Yeah.
Um, I think the immediate skin to skin is very important. But I also feel like that depends on how your delivery goes because if
Yeah.
you just feel exhausted and grossed out and stuff and like you might not want the baby immediately skin to skin. But that's totally up to you. Um I know there is an option like if someone wanted to catch the baby,
Hmm.
but I don't feel like I was ever informed like, "Oh, Austin, do you want to catch the baby?" Like, like it wasn't like a thing. I remember they said, "Oh, do you want to see the baby to Austin because his head was like there, and
Yeah.
he was just like, "I'm okay." But yeah, so I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of things to consider there.
Yeah, there are. The third stage Pitocin is interesting to me because do you know if you got this where they give you like I know you were already kind of given Pitocin, so maybe it wasn't a big deal, but I heard they can give you Pitocin. I think it's routine, where that kind of helps your placenta come out and your uterus shrink to prevent hemorrhaging. So if this is something you don't want, or maybe you put in your plan, I'll only get it if there are like signs of hemorrhaging or signs of something not happening like it should. But I think you definitely need to put that in your plan because it's routine at most hospitals.
I did get that, and I remember being so annoyed because they're like, "Oh, you have to stay on the Pitocin for another hour, and you
Mm,
can't eat like an hour after your birth." And I was like, "I need to eat. It's been 3 days." Like, I
yeah.
mean, by the time my mom went and got the food and brought it back, it was like an hour. But I was so annoyed, and then they made me keep the IV thing on my hand
Hmm.
with nothing hooked up to it for the next few days. Like, that is not going to be a thing. Like, you're gonna take it off. And
You're.
I asked until they took it off. Like, they told me I had
Mhm.
to keep it on until I left, and I was like, I just kept asking every person that came in the room. I'm like, "Can you take this off, please?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "Just
Seriously.
draw a new IV if you need to."
The
Like,
IVs are terrible. It's like, I hate the IV.
yeah. I would probably also add into here is if you want an episiotomy or not.
Mhm.
If you would prefer to tear, I don't know. And this was something interesting I had talked to my doctor about because I was just like, you know, how does that work? Like, obviously, like
Mhm.
I had an episiotomy last time and I didn't feel like I was
Mhm.
notified. Um, like, would I be notified?
Yeah.
Whatever. And they were like, it's not routine for us to do an episiotomy unless there is an issue with getting the baby out. And so I described that, like, he was vacuumed out. And she said, well, that might be a reason why they did the episiotomy. And I'm like, well, I think it goes back to the fact that they had me try pushing at 9 centimeters and the baby wasn't like down. So
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. But yeah, so she said that they would let you tear before they would do an episiotomy, depending on the situation. So that
Yeah.
was interesting.
Yeah, I think we have that under, contingency plans, but that's a good thing to have under
Oh, it
birth
is. Oh, yeah.
preferences too. I mean,
I
it
was
can go
just
under
thinking
wherever.
when the baby came out. Yeah.
For sure, because that's, like I was telling my doula, I was like, "My friend, she's not even sure that she, like, gave consent for an episiotomy." And then she was like, "Well, they're supposed to, but it could have been, you know?"
Yeah. Or like the vacuum. Like I didn't know. I just knew
Mhm.
that they were doing it. I didn't know what
Yeah.
it does. I didn't even know what was going on. Like maybe
Yeah.
they told Austin, but again, it could have just been me out
Right.
of it.
Right. Another thing to consider when crafting your birth plan is the newborn care. So, are you planning to breastfeed? Are you planning to bottle feed? Um, do you want breast milk only? Because sometimes the hospitals have that if you're not producing yet. Uh, do you want to administer the vaccines? Do you want the eye ointment or the vitamin K shots? Are you going to circumcise? Like, think of all these things beforehand. Even like bath preferences. So do you want them to wash, what is it, the vernix off? Because that will soak in after 24 hours. So do you want them clean or do you want them to kind of soak that in themselves? And then what are your screening preferences? Do you want to give them all the screenings, the blood screens, the hearing screenings? So just kind of think about what you want to give your newborn while you're in the hospital because all of that is up to you. They come in kind of like, oh, we're going to do this. So you do have to make sure and say, hey, no, I don't want that for my child.
Mhm. I had the nurse um gave me the nurse that I knew like took all of those preferences from me.
hmm
So that stuff was just like taken care of and like Austin knew how I felt about whatever. So
hmm
I'm assuming it all went the way that I wanted it to.
Yeah.
But again like I remember cuz I had to sign a form. So for like the vaccine, I think it's the Hep B that they give them.
Yeah.
And I had declined that, so you had to like sign a form that you declined that or whatever. But also like trying to figure out like having a boy and the circumcision
hmm
research, that was interesting too.
It is
Like that's
interesting, isn't
something
it?
that you just like, yeah. If you ever have a boy, just do the research on what you want to do.
hmm
um,
And be prepared on what that looks like both ways because I think there's things you have to do if you do get circumcised, and there's things you do have to do if you don't get them
mhm,
circumcised.
yeah. And then I would also say, like, for breastfeeding, like, if you're a first time mom, like, I took a breastfeeding class and I still did not feel prepared to
hmm
understand breastfeeding at all in the hospital.
Yeah.
And even with the lactation support, I feel like I had the lactation support in there 2 to 3 times a day to
Yeah.
help me understand everything. And if I would have just done a little bit more research, I feel like I would have been a lot more confident in what I was doing.
Yeah. Same. And bring your own pump because I pumped using what they gave me, which hospital grade fantastic, but they don't size you, or at least they didn't at mine. And so I had these big flanges. whatever they're called, flanges, and it hurt so bad. So just make
Hmm.
sure you're kind of measuring yourself beforehand and bringing what you need specifically for you to the hospital if you do want to breastfeed or pump.
Yeah, and that was something I asked them at the hospital too. I'm like, how do I know that this is the right size? Like, I was asking the
Hmm.
lactation consultant, and they were just like, looks good. I'm
Yeah,
like,
same.
what?
It was odd because remember you and I had talked about that. We're like, oh, we don't really know. We'll ask the hospital; they'll be able to help us, and they weren't
Hmm.
very helpful.
Yeah, no.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Another one would be contingency plans. So, what to do in case of emergency interventions. So, C section, vacuum, forceps delivery, episiotomy, transfer protocols of birthing at home or in a birthing center. I was just like thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, these happened to us.
Yep.
We didn't have a plan, so make sure you have a plan for like being flexible and how you would want that to be handled if that
Hmm.
does come up. But yeah, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a vacuum.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and there's lots of things like some people think like what choices can I even make if I'm having a C-section or if I because there are things you could have usually they don't have a clear what is that called? They put like something over you and where the doctor's
Like a
cutting and
sheet or
sheet or
barrier.
yeah, so that you can have like a clear one like you can ask for certain things um
I
for
don't
your
know that I would want
C-section.
to see myself cut open, but
Yeah,
agree I would want to see the birth of my baby. I don't know.
mhm. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I was just like shaking and on the ground. So I was just so out of it at that point. But yeah, there are contingency plans you can think of too. And those are good too because you never know what's going to happen. So definitely make sure you know how you feel about those plans.
Mhm.
Okay, so what should you consider when crafting your birth plan? So, I think one of the big things here is definitely research your hospital or birthing center policies, and you want to do this early if you can. Do a lot. I know it takes a long time to research this stuff, but the earlier in your pregnancy that you can do this, the more control you can have. So, for example, a lot of hospitals don't support things like VBAC or TOLAC, so a trial of labor after cesarean. So if your hospital doesn't allow you to do something like that, but that's really part of your birth plan, you might want to consider looking at different hospitals or editing your plan to fit the hospital policies. Another one is some hospitals don't have tubs or don't allow you to labor in a tub, and if that's something that's really important to you, again, maybe try to look around. So really researching where you're giving birth and that care team and making sure they are supportive of your goals is super important, or just if they're your only option, kind of crafting your goals around their policy so you're not caught off guard when you bring in your birth plan. They're like, nope.
Mhm. Yeah, and you want to collaborate with your healthcare providers. You want to ensure they're aware of your plan. You want to discuss it during prenatal visits, and it's almost like awkward because they're like, "Oh, do you have any questions?" And you're like, "Okay, well, I kind of want to talk to you about my birth plan."
Hmm.
So you have to be like really prepared when you go into those types of appointments too. But
Hmm.
you want to make sure they're supportive. Um, if you have a doula, they want to make sure, or you want to make sure that they know your plan, how to support and advocate for you. Um, and they'll also bring up like different suggestions on things you might not have thought of. But making sure that your provider team is on board
Hmm.
is key.
Yep. And then obviously flexibility is super important. So you can prepare as much as possible, but there are a lot of things about birth and labor that are really unpredictable. You're not sure what's going to go on until it happens, and it's unpredictable from labor to labor and from woman to woman. So you could have a perfect first pregnancy and then second time need a C-section. So it's you have to be flexible and just try to work as much flexibility into your plan as possible. I think thinking about those contingency plans is a really good way to do that.
Yeah, and then making sure your partner's on board with the plan and how they fit in. So I just remember, Austin had tried to do whatever he felt he needed to do in that
Hmm.
moment, but it wasn't like we had talked about like I need you by my side. I need you to say this. I need you to
Mhm.
speak up here. And so that's something that obviously we'll talk about this time, but they have the ability to advocate for you when you're just like in your emotions and like going
Mhm.
through labor and you can't talk. So, and
Yeah.
that's hard for them too, because sometimes they're just like in the moment and they see you in pain and they just like, they like don't know what to do. So if you don't prepare them
Yeah.
for it, it can be hard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very unpredictable for your partner too. And I think it's important for your partner to also do some of this work that you're doing. Like, what does labor look like? What should they expect? What role do they play? When do they play the role? How can they support you? Um, and even how that could change, because you could be somebody that's like, okay, I want you to hold on to me or do counter pressure while I'm having contractions, but then maybe when the time comes, you don't want to be touched. And just like making sure your partner is aware of like that could happen. Um, and,
Yeah, there
and
was a point in time where like Austin put his hands on me, or because I had him, I don't know what he was doing. I had him doing something for me or touching me or something. And like the next time he went to go do it, I was like, do not touch
you're
me.
like, no. Yeah.
So
Uh,
just funny.
mhm. Okay, so the last thing we want to talk about is how to communicate your birth plan. Um, I know, Alyssa, you had mentioned it seems awkward, to like bring this plan in and talk about it. But it is really important to make sure that you are communicating your birth plan. So, share your plan with your OBGYN and the midwife. We did mention this previously, but the more you discuss it with them prior to birth, the better informed your whole team will be. Now, I am going or I'm birthing somewhere essentially that has a rotation of people, and I basically see a new person every time. We talk about it almost every time. And I bring it up to every single person. So you want to do that both like appointment wise, but also like when you're in labor.
Mhm. You can print copies that are easily accessible because you're going to see so many rotating staffs, probably depending on how long you're there.
Yeah.
Different nurses, different doctors. So make sure that you print them so you have easy access to them. And then there are
Yeah.
also free templates online that you can use to help craft and communicate your birth plan in a concise way that is easy to reference. I've seen when I was doing research for mine, the original, the first time, there's written ones, there's ones with pictures that like
Hmm.
indicate medication, no medication, things like that. And there's also many sellers on Etsy that have crafted great templates for a small price that you can like download and personalize
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, that's where I got mine. I got mine off of Etsy, and I think it was like $2. And it was just nice because I feel like they list out a lot of the stuff you should consider. And then you
Mhm.
could just like add and remove based on your preferences. So I found a template like that really helpful, but a lot of free ones online too, like for sure.
Yeah, I think when I was trying to look for a free one this time, I had seen a lot pop up on Etsy and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
I didn't even know they were on there.
Yeah, right. Etsy has everything.
Yeah. But I think that covers our episode today in terms of what is a birth plan, what do you include, other things you could should consider when you're building out your birth plan, and then making sure you communicate it effectively to the people that need to know. Um, I think there's a lot of information in there, and everyone has a specific way that they would prefer things to be. So it really takes a lot of research on you and figuring out what you want for your birth.
Yeah.
But I think we should dive into our mom eras.
What mom era are you in?
We're in our presence mom era.
Hmm.
Um, so we had a family like get together this past weekend, and we had all like the presents out and everything. And I really didn't think like Axel would want to touch them or interact with them like before we got to the point of opening presents,
Yeah.
but he was all about them. And so we had to like hide them. Um and then when we got to opening the presents, like everyone opened them individually and then we did Axel last, and he
Hmm.
wasn't even like paying attention or trying to open anybody's present. I'm like, what is going on? So it's just very interesting. but he gets so excited, like presents. And then when we
Mhm.
say like Santa's coming, he's ho ho, ho ho.
Ho ho.
Like, yeah, ho ho's coming. Um, but yeah, so I'm excited to see like with it just being us and not like everyone, like how he reacts on Christmas
Mhm.
morning. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I know, I'm excited too. I'm so excited. Yeah, that's similar to mine. We're like just in our holiday era, mom era. Just the next few days, like we are basically going to family, like 24th, 25th, 26th, 29th. We all have family stuff.
Oh dang.
Yeah, we need to craft something different because right now we have this thing where like we're still getting together with extended family, which I love our extended families. Like we're getting together with like my aunts and uncles, Rob's aunts and uncles, and it worked out this year where one was doing it Christmas Eve and one was doing it the day after Christmas, so we get to do both cuz typically we can only do one. But then our own like families like want to get together with just us. And
Hmm.
so my mom and my brothers, like we'll all get together and then we'll do the same with Rob's family. So we're doing like 4 Christmases plus our own. And it's just, we need to find a happy medium there because, of course, we want to see everybody. But like having 2 kids and everybody lives about an hour away, it's just difficult.
Where I
And
feel
it's
like
going
the
to get more
opposite,
difficult.
because I feel like ours has just shrunk this
Yeah.
year. Like, we normally would do something with Austin's family Christmas Eve, and then also do something with my family Christmas Eve, and then we'd have something with my mom in the morning, and then my family, and then my dad's family. Where, like, this
Hmm.
year we just did like one get together for Thanksgiving and Christmas with my dad. We did the little Marine one this
Hmm.
past weekend, and now we're just half of my family is in the hospital
Yeah.
this year because of my cousin. We're just doing like dinner Christmas Eve, and then we're going to my mom's for daytime dinner Christmas Day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to do all the fun things for Axel, but
Yeah.
so we're doing things at home, I guess, more this year.
Do a little bit, yeah. I wanted like our original plan is we were going to do Christmas at home, not go anywhere on Christmas Day, and like order Chinese, have the whole day because the day before and the day after we're doing something, and then try to plan like our families on like separate days to give us just like a day of rest.
Hmm.
I just am so crabby and tired and grumpy as a pregnant person right now that I I just know like 3 days in a row of just go, go, go is gonna be a lot.
Hmm.
So, I was really hoping for that, but it doesn't sound like Rob's family can do any other day except Christmas Day. So then we're trying to convince everybody to come to our house so then we don't have to go anywhere, but we're not getting responses from his brother, and which is frustrating. So, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. I like the happy medium. I like to go and see family and do things, but I also just want, especially because I'm pregnant, there to be just a little bit of rest.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Where I like to go, I'd rather go to other places and not host, because then I
Hmm.
can like go and leave when I want.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but basically what we'll probably end up doing is Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then we'll end up going down to the hospital. Um,
Mm, yeah.
Probably after Christmas, before New Year's at some point.
How far is the drive?
3.5 hours.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that
That's not
bad.
terrible. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, do that and relax. And I
Hmm.
can't even think about New Year's Eve right now.
I know. I don't even know what we have planned. I don't think we have anything planned.
Oh, but yeah, so that is our Mom Era podcast. Thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you have a good week, and we will see you later.
Okay. Bye bye.